You're right, Gangrene UK. You're joining us for episode 59, and we're talking pre-season football with Otis, James, and Fraser. Thanks for coming along, guys. How's it going, Otis?
Yeah, very good, very busy, but good.
You don't look as tired as I thought you would.
Yeah, Madison's sleeping okay at the moment, to be fair. So yeah, not too bad.
Good, good. How about you, Fraser? How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Nothing much going on, to be honest. Just working and chilling. That's it, really. Nothing much
Hashtag island
last
life.
time. What?
Island life.
Basically, yeah.
And what about you, James? You're the only one of us that actually have an outgoing life at the moment. So we're living on what you tell us right now.
Yeah, not too much, man. Went to a festival last weekend in the heat, so a bit red still. It's kind of dying, but we survived, mate. So
I thought that was just the glare off your computer screen, but yeah. So how are you feeling about pre-season so far? We're just after the second pre-season game. Now we'll scoot back to, I think it was 7 to 10 days ago now, when the world nearly fell out. I mean, most of us were chatting as it was happening, but obviously the injury to Zach. How did you feel about that at the time, Fraser, to how you feel about it now?
Well, obviously at the time I was thinking the worst. And I was probably jumping on the Jimmy G trade bandwagon straight away with about 99% of the other fans, because at the end of the day, we're Jets fans and we're just used to bad things happening to us. But yeah, obviously it's not as bad, which is obviously great news. So obviously I'm off that wagon now and would go nowhere near him. But yeah, obviously it was a shock at first and all that. But yeah, you got to be happy with the outcome, to be honest. Even if he misses the first 3 games, you're still going to get him back early in the season. And we've got to trust Flacco anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. What about you, James? How did I mean, to be fair, you weren't even checking your phone. So we already knew what had happened before you even realized you got hurt.
Yeah, to be honest, I was getting very little connection. So I saw on the Saturday just on Facebook that he got injured. And then I was like, if he's out for the season, that's going to kill my vibe. So I was like, well, I'll check when I get back on Monday. And thankfully it wasn't all over. So the fact that he's going to be back this year is thank God, all honesty, very happy.
And Otis, I mean, me and you have chatted about this because we were talking the other day about it.
Yeah, I don't think I was quite so quick on the big injury bust as a few others. I was fairly blasé, I think, about it in our chat and on the page as well. You couldn't see a big buckle on the replays. There was a lot of reports on Twitter, wasn't there, straight away that it was ACL, but you usually see something, particularly when they're non-contact, you can sort of see a knee buckle or a knee go and you sort of go, yeah, okay, that's an ACL, we're knackered. I think it's lucky either way, let's be honest. It's very fortunate for the Jets. But he needs to learn from it. He needs to accept that he's going to slide a bit more often, that he's going to run out of bounds instead of trying to get that cut. If that's to make the Super Bowl, you crack on, mate. You make the cut and try and get the yards. But yeah, it's preseason. It's week 1. It's week 8 in a game when you're down by 10 or you're up by 10. Take the slide and just be happy.
Yeah, I think it's one of those though. With that situation, it's exactly what you just said there. Any other time, any other game that wasn't preseason, if he'd have went out of bounds and that cut was available, we'd be like, what are you doing? You go for that. You get them yards. But it's one of those. I would rather it happen in preseason than it happen in week 3 when I was potentially losing for weeks 4 through 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, how did you feel the preseason games went? First game was obviously Eagles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I can imagine your household was a little bit all over that night. I mean, I could see divorce coming at halftime, and then maybe a kind of a reconcile halfway through the second.
You know what? It wasn't too bad, to be fair. It wasn't as bad as what it was last night. I think there was more chance of divorce last night than what there was last week against the Eagles. But Yeah, it was. In all honesty, after Zach get injured, I can't really remember much of that game because I was just, as you know, because I was on the chat constantly. I was on my phone just constantly trying to get updates, trying to see anything, and just my mind wasn't on the game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So, which is probably a good thing that I can't really remember much of it. But the household was all right. If it was a regular season game, I think it would have been a different story.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't have been watching it in your house. You would have had to go out. There's no.
Well, I think I'd have sent her upstairs, and she could have watched it in this telly upstairs.
But we know that would have been the other way around. You would have went upstairs.
Possibly. Yeah.
So obviously, on our last video, we were talking about players that needed to have good off seasons. Now, we all kind of focused in on wide receivers because we seem to have an abundance of them. But one man we all kind of spoke about a lot was Denzel Mims. So, James, off what you've seen in the off season, is Mims making the roster, or is it going to be one of them where it's still too early to tell on him?
He had an okay night last night for the Falcons game. He had a fair few catches there and kind of the first signs of life we've seen in a long time. I don't know. It's going to be a close one because there does seem to be a lot of wide receiver talent, but I think he's still got a chance at that last spot if he has a big game for this next one.
Yeah. What about you, Otis? Like, obviously, you've spoken quite a lot about it. You think there's the potential there. Is he showing you it in a game? Because he is on the practice field.
I was pleased to see what he produced last night. The first game against the Eagles, he wasn't good enough. Didn't look like he was up to full speed. But then last night, caught 3 of his 4 targets, 46 yards to 15 yards average per catch, 46 yards over the 3. So, I was pretty pleased with last night. Looked like he ran some crisp routes, looked like he was open a few times, possibly not hit a couple of times. Fairly pleased with last night. But I think it's going to be telling, particularly week 1, if Flacco doesn't play next week. If Flacco plays preseason game week 3 and Mims starts to get some reps with Flacco and he's starting to catch balls from Flacco, that will be a much more telling situation, I think. Until the ones start running and you start to see him maybe open because other people are double covered, you're not going to know truly what he's doing, I don't think.
I think Salah has said the ones are playing against the Giants. So I'm going to twist it with you a little bit, Fraser. Instead of going Mims, I'm going to go Calvin Jackson. Because I don't think Calvin Jackson is stealing Denzel Mims' spot, but I definitely think he's pushing Tariq Black down.
I think he probably has already pushed Black down, in all honesty, just going off even Jackson's camp and his week against the Eagles. I thought that he would push Mims a bit more, but he was quiet when he was out there last night. I know he's saying push on to Calvin Jackson a little bit, but I think that is a competition between Jackson and Mims potentially for who will potentially get that, maybe even the last spot as a wide receiver. Difference, obviously, Mims being on special teams is a massive upside to keep him on the roster, and obviously how much money he's costing. The thing I did notice with Mims last night, though, is even though he done better, he definitely gave away one I can't remember if it was a push in the back or something he done, and one of the special teams were out there. Can't remember if I heard his name another time for another flag of some sort, but he definitely improved last night. Personally, out of the 2 of them, it's a tough one. I don't think we're going to get a clear sight on it until at least next week. I think they'll keep Mims, though. I think the only way you'll see Mims go is if it's a trade and if it's a good value pick, or if it's an exchange for another depth position where we're maybe struggling a little bit, maybe in the O-line or something like that. But you've got to remember that in the next week or so, there's going to be a lot more cuts. There's going to be a lot of wide receivers getting released.
We go down to 80 tonight.
Yeah, so a lot of the value there in what Mims will bring to the Jets is probably not going to be much, because there will be some good players who get released.
Yeah.
But then again, it could go the opposite way. We could end up picking up someone who we feel could contribute more as a vet, maybe even, and then get rid of Mims. So honestly, I've got no idea.
It's one of them. On the most recent depth chart, Calvin Jackson is down as the second punt returner behind Berrios.
I think Calvin Jackson will be on the roster week 1. I do think I think he's done enough. I don't know if it's between him and Black. Then I think Black's gone to the practice squad, or somebody will pick him up. But I think it'll be Calvin Jackson who gets that spot.
I think Jackson's putting Smith at more risk than he is of Mims, to be honest, because I think Jeff Smith doesn't contribute on special teams, whereas Mims, you go, he's doing both. Although Mims maybe isn't quite as polished as Smith at the moment, although I think he probably is when he's actually on it and playing well. I think Jeff Smith's the one that Jackson is fighting the most. I agree with Fraser. I think Black's toast. I think Jackson has already beaten out Black. I think Smith is the spot he's fighting with, I think, for me.
That's absolutely fair. I mean, it's an interesting one, and it's nice to be having these conversations about who we're cutting, who's good. We say this every video at the minute. Now, when we look at the tight end room, James, like, we've got 6 tight ends. How many do you think we're going to roll into the season with? And then who do you think they're going to be?
Probably a 4 is what I mean, I was going to go 4. I'd go probably Rucker, Uzama, Conklin, and then probably Cager, as he seems to be. Quite a big night last night. Scored a tud, so I'm liking him for grabbing that last spot.
Do you agree, Fraser?
Yeah,
maybe your 4 as well.
I think Cager's another one that could also affect the Mims and Jackson and Black anyway, because obviously he's transitioned to a tight end, but he's more of like a hybrid, so he can go out into wide receiver as needs to. So there could be a lot of value there for him. And that's the reason I think he will get that. And last night, his performance, he's shown that he's developing at that position really well. So, but it feels like every year we're having this conversation with Cager anyway. So, and he's always hanging about.
I mean, he's done well just to stay around.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the same 4, Otis, or are you bringing in Yeboah or Wesco?
I agree with the 4 if Wesco stays as a tight end, as a fullback, because I think Wesco will be on the roster, but I think you'll class him as a fullback. If you class him as a tight end, then it's 5. But either way, whichever way you look at it, he's on. So
then you're cutting Borden.
Yep, because he just offers one thing. I don't think in football today, if you're on a bubble, you can only offer one thing. You've got to be able to offer 2.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. I mean, we were saying this earlier on in our chat, weren't we, that what you said, Fraser, with Cager offering relief at wide receiver, Wesco offers the same at fullback and tight end. So we do know that the coaching staff like utility players who can plug and play in different positions. The starting O-line looks like it's set now. We're all happy with that.
Yep.
So we're talking Dwayne Brown, Laken Tomlinson, Connor McGovern, Elijah Vera-Tucker, and George Fant.
Yep.
It's like, have we ever been in this position where we're like, yeah, that O-line's good? Like, we're happy?
Not since the championship years.
The second line, I'm not even too unhappy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope we don't lose both tackles at the same time, because then we're looking at a very tight, because we've got Max Mitchell behind, and we've got Chuma Adoga, then Grant Hermans, and then Caleb Benoit and Connor McDermott is now sitting in the 4th tackle spot. So you've got to kind of look at it that Connor's probably going today.
Good chat, yeah.
Your boy's probably gone today.
Yep.
Borden or Wesco, either or. One of them will go today, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't see him keeping 2 fullbacks into week 3. I don't see the point.
But then we move on to the only other area where I think there's going to be a major cut that we've got to kind of be ready for is running back. because we've got Carter and Hall, who, let's face it, are not going absolutely anywhere. They're the only two that you can go. They aren't going anywhere. But then you've got Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, LaMichael Pirine, and Zonovan Knight. Pirine was better last night, but he was better just because he was in the game more. The last year of the virus, he had more play, so he looked better. I just don't see him sticking around after today. Go back to you, James. What are you thinking on that running back room? Are you cutting anybody tonight, or do you think a few of them will stay on and maybe cut on the next Tuesday?
We've got a lot, haven't we? But the issue is they've all shown quite good signs. Like, that's my issue, really. And I suppose Pirine, that is kind of the first sight we've had of him in a game in about 2 years. So if anyone, he's got to go. But I like keeping Johnson. I like giving Knight another week. And yeah, as you said, the other two are staying. So yeah, it's a tough decision to make, but it's a good decision to have to make. Let's say.
So how many are you taking with your Otis?
I think you probably keep 5 at this stage. I think. But it's hard to say because I think you're probably keeping 5. I think you're probably keeping Carter, Hall, Johnson and probably Coleman. I'm not sure if Knight makes it. I think Knight might end up on the practice squad this week. I think that might be his destination. He's not featuring enough in the games. Even last night, he didn't. There was nothing there really for him. They're obviously not working him into the game plan. He's not at a point on the field.
He is down as joint second kick returner with Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, well, that's why I said Coleman would stay, because I saw him returning kicks last night. I think Berrios takes that over, though. I think they give that back to Berrios.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is then you've got to keep one of them behind, because then if we do have something in wide receiver where, like we did last year with Berrios, where he ends up playing more offensive snaps, all of a sudden you don't want to be wearing him out, running it back all the time.
Yeah, but let's be honest, you don't run back a kickoff, do you? The kickoff is just a man that can catch a ball and not drop it. Or even
you've seen Berrios. He does run him back quite a lot, to be fair.
Yeah, but like if you don't want him to, you just tell him to take touchbacks, because most of them kick it straight over their heads now anyway.
Well, they don't kick to Berrios now.
They just step to the left and let it bounce out the end zone. So I don't think kick return is not a position anymore, really.
Yeah, we say that, but it'll be that one time that we have a superstar in that we get that score. Are you okay with the cuts on running backs, Fraser, or are you wanting to see more? Cut any?
I think if any of them get cut today, I think it'll be one, and I just think it'll be Pirine out of them all. I want to see more of Knight, because I like Coleman, but I could see Knight just because of his value and how much he costs and what he can bring, and basically for how many good running backs we've got ahead of him anyway. I could see Coleman going, but I think it'll be Pirine today if one of them goes. I think there'll be one more sent down to the practice squad in the next block next week. As for O-line, I think Connor McDermott will be safe today. I think it'll be what's his name? Is it Williams? Is it Isaiah Williams? Is he
Isaiah Williams, yeah, he's a right guard backup.
Right guard
backup.
Yeah, I think he'll go today.
Well, I think we went down from 90 to 85 and go down to 80. So we're only cutting 5 tonight.
Yeah.
And then next week you go down to 53 from 80.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see Wild Goose potentially. Is that his name? Wild Goose. I think he'll potentially go today. But it's a tough one. I mean, last week was quite easy to gauge who we thought would go. There was maybe a list of 7 or 8 who we thought would go out of the 4 or 5 that get cut, and they weren't far off. Yeah, it was quite easier last week, but I do think Williams will be one, and Pirine potentially might be one today.
Yeah,
the other 3 have got no idea, to be honest.
Well, it's one of them. They're going to cut somebody that somebody likes. That's inevitable. The one thing we do have to look at is obviously you can only have a certain number of players that have more than 2 years experience on your practice squad. So that's where it might look good for Coleman, which I could see us keeping Coleman on and dropping Zonovan Knight down. And then if Knight excels on the practice squad, we release Coleman and bring Knight in. Just because he takes up a spot for players that are going to hit that practice squad that we need on the practice squad. You know what I mean?
I think that's a difficult one as well, based on what Hall does. Because Coleman at the moment is starting running back number 2 with Carter. Hall can't start at the moment if he's going to play like he is at the moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's one of those arguments. I've seen it all day today, and it's been kind of like quite funny to see, because obviously we have the Mike White lovers, the Mike White haters because they're Zach lovers, right? And then the Zach lovers and some Mike, they're all saying Steveler, or however you say it, should be staying, and White has to be going. But then people are going, well, he's only playing against 2s and 3s, so wait for him to play in a game. But he's playing with 2s and 3s against 2s and 3s.
Also, you don't want him to play in a game, so that's an irrelevant argument. He's playing in a
It's
game.
not even
really
that.
sad.
The argument that they're giving for not keeping him is the reason we draft. Like, they tried to give us to not draft Zach. So you know that argument doesn't work. Zach played in a little college against poor teams, so he looks good. But he was playing with equal talented players.
Yeah,
he was just very good within that setup. For me, it's a funny one. It's an argument that no matter what, somebody's got to be wrong. And I don't think it's about being wrong or right. It's about actually giving a good reason as to why. Like, I would take White and I would drop him. Purely for the fact there's more upside with Chris Streveler than there is with Mike White. I'm doing it phonically now.
White won't be cut until the last set of cuts because you need the camp arm, but Mike White's days are numbered.
Yeah. But when you look at it, they're the same age, but Chris has played more football than Mike has. And ultimately, with a backup, all you want is somebody who's had reps and experience. Yes, it's not in the NFL, but that's like saying United are going to pick up a player and sit him on the bench because he's only played in a lower division in Europe. It's not going to happen. If they're a player that can play, you're going to put them in. But we're talking literally, it's an unknown thing. We're talking about a third string quarterback, and that's the biggest debate that we've got in camp at the minute. I mean, third string freaking quarterback, and people are getting their disjointed out of it. I mean, there's bigger concerns on defense on who we're going to lose for me, because the defense has looked solid. It looked okay. I mean, yes, but right,
it was shredded by the Eagles.
Yeah, right.
But
destroyed. They have stepped up. They made stops.
Well, the second string stepped up, and the second string.
But this is what preseason's about. It's not about your first string showing off and beating up another team's second string. Bills. It's purely about your second string showing that actually they've got fight. I mean, which one? Who's disappointed you? Who on defense? Like, obviously, you've seen the games. You've watched
the starting offense didn't get anywhere. The starting defensive line didn't get anywhere near enough pressure against the Eagles. The whole defensive line wasn't good enough against the Eagles
for one series because they didn't play the full starting line against the Eagles. They played not all together.
They played Johnson, who's supposed to be a starter, and didn't do.
Johnson at the minute is on the depth chart as third string.
Is he?
He's not a starter.
Wasn't impressed at all against the Eagles. The corners again didn't hold up well enough against the Eagles. I don't think against the starters.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought the corners would have been better, but it didn't kill us because we still won the game.
because they took their starters out after a drive and we kept ours in.
Did we? Didn't keep all of them in.
We played 2 drives, didn't we, straight away? And we kept the starting defense in against their 2s as well. And they still got shredded by their 2s to start with.
I don't think we played all firsts. We only played partially firsts.
Yeah, they still got shredded by them.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I don't think
defense
that's
doesn't look as good as it should.
preseason. I don't think any player other than Hall last night? Yeah, Bryce Hall. I don't think anybody have really kind of been terrible. I think some of them could have been better, but I wouldn't say any of them have been awful.
I mean, I only watched the first half, but both quarterbacks seemed to have their way with the 2s last night, in all honesty. Like, chunk after chunk. Like, I know they were only playing simple D, but it wasn't great to watch. We did come back in the second.
And I think
it's only our 3rd stringers that are coming back though every time, and it was the 3rd stringers that won the Eagle game, and it was the 3rd stringers that won the game against the Falcons. If it hadn't have been for the 3rd string, we'd lost both. Well, you don't want to be relying on them to win any game in regular season, do you?
Yeah, but it's that thing as well where actually simple defense is probably where 3rd string are most comfortable.
Yeah, but also the best players should be able to execute that faultlessly. If you can't
But when-
execute simple,
I would, yeah, but I would also want them to be doing extra calls. I would want them to be looking a bit deeper, doing something a bit different. So I don't know. I don't think I'm as concerned as what you are, obviously. But I think there will be some very, very scary cuts on defense that people will be like, what is happening? Just because of the sheer numbers. Like, yeah, we're not going to roll in with Kai, Deshaun Phillips, DQ Thompson, Quan Alexander, Jamie Sherwood, Nasruddin, Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley, and Marcel Harris all at linebacker. We're not running in with all 9.
No, they'll take 5 or 6 on it.
Yeah, you would like to think 6 because I would be okay with cutting the 3rd string, but at the same time, yeah, that's some names that we know can play there. Like Phillips has had a nice off season. So's Nakai to a degree. I mean, anybody you see getting cut on defense, James?
Possibly Will Parks. He did have a good hit last night.
The hit that saved his off season.
Yeah.
Anyone for you, Fraser?
Don't know. Defense is tough, as you said. It's hard to gauge what they're going to go. I think there's a few players that have pushed themselves further up the chart in terms of. I do think Will Parks has been good, and there's a few others, and then obviously you've got Bryce Hall, who had an absolute nightmare last night. And when you watch back and you see Pitts actually talking about how he's seen how scared he was of him, it's a bit worrying. But yeah, I don't know who'll get caught in defense or who's like majorly disappointed me. As you were saying, in the first game there was a few starters missing, but we did kind of get tore up a little bit. But I'm trying not to worry about that either because there's a lot of new players in that team. First preseason game. I'd like to have seen some of them get a game last night, the starters. But I worry come week 1 if we're getting shredded. I think we'll be okay. But if we're not, I could see Salah taking over that defense anyway. So I think it could be a win-win situation.
Who you cutting, Otis?
I think there's a fair few DNs that are going to end up going.
Yeah, I think they have to, don't they?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be shocked to see some of the DNs that started last year go as well because of how much better the room's got. I think Huff could go. I think Kazuniga could easily go. There's a few DTs as well. I don't necessarily think Nathan Shepard's 100% safe. The only thing that's keeping him around is the fact we signed on a new contract, I think, but I'm not sure any guaranteed money was in that. I think he hasn't played that well this yet. Even playing with the seconds last night, he didn't play great.
Yeah, I think that contract was meant to kind of get Shepherd to step up and fight Solomon Thomas for the starting job, but Thomas has just came in like a demon.
It's the difference between an undrafted rookie and a first-round pick, though, right? Solomon was always going to beat him out.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people said Solomon was done, but I don't think that's anywhere near true.
27.
I agree with Zuniga. I think Zuniga's gone. Bradley Ane could probably go.
Yeah.
Bryce, I would like to see him keep him this week. Yeah, it's just, but like you say, when I'm saying bigger shocks, it is because some of these players were starters last year.
Yeah, the likes of Bryce Huff that played DN for us last year
and
when
delivered numbers.
Well, go steady.
But on our team, he was a leader in numbers. So it's bad. It's bad when we're looking back. But yeah, it's somebody that actually was a big part of our season last year. And we're going, yeah, he's probably on thin ice. I mean, we're going into the last week. Do you think we could be a bit cheeky and drop a kicker this week as an easy drop?
I think the Jags are maybe hoping so, since they've got no kickers, they've just dropped theirs. No kickers on the roster, so
Zerline got most of the action last night, didn't he?
Yeah.
Greg the Leg, if he's accurate, is the one to pick, right? Surely.
Well, yeah. I mean, but you've got to think they only give Pinheiro extra points last night.
There's only one field goal there.
But he didn't get the option to take it. And that's what I want to see Pinheiro doing, because he doesn't have the length. Where we know Greg can make a 45-yarder because it's Greg. We've seen him do it for years. But
yeah, Pinheiro is a difficult one, isn't he? Because it's not necessarily length that's his problem. It's the drive that he sends the ball on. It's too low, isn't it? That's the issue.
Yeah.
He's got length, but he has to hit it low. And that's just not, with some of the big guys that are playing D-line now, to block punts, that's field goal, sorry, that's pretty difficult.
Yeah, but it's that thing as well, though. He's an ex-soccer goalkeeper. Like, most of the goalkeepers I've ever played with or seen play, like, they get a decent height on a football.
Yeah, but it's a gradual height. It's a drive.
I don't know. Some of my guys are like, it's already like well higher than you need it by the time it gets to the 18-yard box. But they're just proper meatheads, where Pinheiro's quite small. I don't know. I think I would be upset if we did cut it, one of them this week, but it would be a very easy cut if you wanted to save somebody else somewhere on the roster.
Yeah.
To have a look at them.
Yeah.
Overall, how are you feeling about the off-season? It's more so the last 2 weeks. James?
I don't know how to feel at the moment, really. You can never really tell from preseason. I more just want it to get to week one, as injuries terrify me, whether we lose one of the draft picks or whoever. I just kind of want to get to game one now. So hopefully get out next week unscathed and get to week one. That's the plan.
Boys?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. I've got a few concerns about some of the rookies and the expectations and sort of talk about what the rookies have been doing in camp compared to what they're actually doing in games. Some of them are getting talked up for winning matchups when they're playing 75% against their own team or against other teams and it's training camp. And then in the games, can't seem to do a thing, which is a bit concerning. But we'll have to wait and see a little bit.
Fraser, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm just glad there's not as many injuries as what I was probably expecting. A month ago, if you asked me this question, I'd probably have thought we'd have had 3-4 starters probably looking at being out week one. Obviously, it's not ideal. Zach probably missing week one. But overall, I think the injury side of things is what I've been happy and impressed most with out of it all. And that's just kind of what I'm looking at taking away from it. I'll judge the players, as especially rookies, as the season goes on, and players that are vets, judge them how they act around them and how they take the team on their back week one. But overall, I don't think you can be mad at it. You've got to remember as well, we've not lost a preseason game since 2019 now as well. So it's I know That's why I try not look into it too much, because every season since then we've done rubbish. But yeah, it's been okay so far.
I mean, I kind of mirrored those thoughts. It could have been horrendous 7 days ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was. It's not any better or any worse than I thought it would be. It's preseason. I don't particularly enjoy watching preseason. I would rather watch CFL or Division 2 football, if I'm being honest.
CFL's been good this year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was a low blow on it. Yeah, it's just one of them where I just want the season here now. I just want it to just get underway and just see where we end up, and yeah, judge it that way. I'm sick of talking about what ifs and who to get rid of. I just want to know who we've got and who we're starting rolling into week 1. Which, to be fair, I would rather them not know who we're starting, but I want us to know who's starting. Because yeah, it's going to be an interesting week 1. Put it that way.
I'm just looking forward to week 4 or 5 when I can get on the Will Anderson hype train for next season.
Yeah, it's going to be a good season. We can see it coming. Obviously, we have got our week 1 meet. It's all set, and then we hope that the 49ers faithful in town are going to have a good time as well. We'll try and pop by, but they're keeping their location very hush-hush. But yeah, it's going to be a good week. So thanks for joining us, guys. Join us next time for episode 60, where we're going to talk about the last week of preseason. One time we might get postseason, guys. But we'll see you later.